What's up, y'all? So I recently was reached out to by a guy who saw my tutorial on how to TalkBox, and he essentially commissioned me to make a couple other videos that he was cool with me posting on my YouTube. So that's where these videos are coming from. So shout out to him. Um, this video, he was essentially asking for more information about, he doesn't play keys, he doesn't play an instrument. So he was asking for information of what keyboard skills do you need to have in order to play the TalkBox. If you don't already play an instrument, you don't already play keyboards, what do you need to focus on? So that's the whole context of this video, and what I'll be talking about in this video. That being said, you could apply what I'm going to talk about in this video to any instrument. I play 5 different instruments and pretty much all of them at the same level. And I just applied these 3 things. And this is what I was taught when I first started learning, was learn these 3 things and you can learn any instrument. And I personally am a big believer in it still to this day. So that being said, if you're already an advanced piano player or a keyboard player, there might not be that much that you learn in this video, just because it's stuff that you've probably been drilling since day one, or a good chance there is. I don't know. Even still, there could be some stuff that you could learn in this video. To me, it's kind of all focused on learning how to connect your brain to your fingers as well as possible, so that if you have an idea, a musical melody idea, you can get it out on the keyboard through your fingers. And that's basically what I'm going to talk about today. So I got some notes here. So, one pro of if you're learning the TalkBox and it's your first instrument as a keyboard player is you're generally only worried about one note melodies. You're worried about vocal melodies for the most part. So you're not going to have to worry about chords. Chords are when you play more than one note at a time. General overview of chords. And you don't have to play chords to play the TalkBox. So that's one nice thing. Eventually you'll probably want to learn about chords, but by the time you've learned the TalkBox and learn how to play some melodies, hopefully the chords aren't so daunting. The other thing too is you're generally only playing with your right hand. You're generally only playing with one hand at a time. So that's one less thing to worry about. You don't have to coordinate your left and your right hand, which I've found for myself and with pretty much every student I've ever had is one of the things that's the toughest, is to learn to coordinate that left hand and that right hand. One con of making, these both could be kind of considered cons of learning to play the TalkBox, because you don't have to learn about chords and you don't have to learn to coordinate that left and right hand. So you're slightly hindered if you wanted to just hop on regular keys, if you wanted to play piano or you wanted to play, whatever, organ, and you don't know your chords. That's going to be you're going to have to learn your chords at some point. But like I said, if you learn these 3 things that I'm going to talk about in this video, then you should be pretty set up and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So, the 3 things that I'm going to talk about, the first is scales, the second is technique, and the third is basically transposing songs or solos or whatever it is, learning other people's music. So first is scales. So scale, what is a scale? Scale is basically just a collection of notes that sounds good together. So everybody's pretty familiar with the major scale. I don't know if y'all can hear this, but that's a major scale, right? Those notes just kind of sound good together. They all fit together nicely. And there's a lot of different kinds of scales. And then that exact same major scale can be played in different positions on the keyboard. So you gotta learn your scales. There's really not any good way around that. You gotta learn your scales. There's a lot of videos. That's a whole video in and of itself, is to do a video just on scales and how to practice your scales. But generally what you're doing is you need to learn exactly mechanically how your fingers are going to go up and down the scale. Again, real quick overview on this. You're generally going to have 3 or 4 note clusters. So if you look at a keyboard, if you look at the major scale, let's see, can you see that? So in this case, this is just the simplest one, C major scale. Your 3 note cluster is your C, D, E, and your 4 note is your F, G, A, B. And you do like a thumb under when you're going up, and then you do a middle finger over when you're going back down. So that's the general gist. You need to figure that out for basically every single scale, and every scale is different shapes, so they're not all just the white keys. It's a time-consuming process, but it does get a little easier with every single one. You get a little bit faster learning the scales with every single one. And you can be learning songs while you're learning your scales. So it's not like you have to learn, you don't need to learn all of your, really all three of these things should be learned at the same time. You don't need to learn all your scales first and then start working on technique and then start working on other people's songs after you've really nailed technique. I would say pick a scale or two and work on those two scales while you're focusing on technique, while you're working on this, and then also be learning a song at the same time. But maybe spend 10 minutes a day on scales, 10 minutes a day focused on technique, and 10 or 20 minutes a day learning some other song. So yeah, I mean that's basically it in a nutshell for scales. You need to learn the mechanics of how your fingers work up and down a scale. And in order to do that, you have to play these things super slow. People, I think, underestimate how you really practice. When I first started practicing my scales, I'm telling you, I literally just sat there and just put a metronome on, put it at 60 beats per measure, and you're not going to leave 60 beats per measure for a long time. So just, you got to deal with that. As far as technique goes, there's some exercises called Hannon exercises. Again, you can find these all over YouTube. There's people that go through like the first 20 Hannon exercises. And the general gist is it's kind of just, again, it's teaching you how to, it's teaching you how mechanically to use your fingers. It's creating that mind finger connection. And then if you do them in a specific way, it kind of teaches you how the movement of your arms should be working as you move up or down a keyboard. This is, again, one of those things that's just, I mean, I could make an entire video just on technique, and people have done that. So I would suggest that you spend some time really focused on technique and trying to lock that down, because having good technique is just going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. So Hannon exercises are a good one. That's one of the ones that I use. But also too, while you're learning your scales, is just asking yourself, am I doing this? This is the real key, I think, to technique is, are you being efficient, right? Are your movements complete as efficient as possible? If there's any tension in your playing, if your hands get tense, if your wrists get tense, if your arms get tense, if your back or your body in any way tenses up while you're trying to play your thing, odds are you're going too fast, and you need to figure out a way to play it slower and find a way to get that tension out of there. So yeah, minimal tension, and then that's the basic gist of technique is minimal tension and efficiency. Everything should make the most sense. And when I say efficiency, again, like what I'm talking about is if you play a riff or you play a scale, right? Efficiency is finding a way that your fingers move as little as possible, right? I'm not picking up my fingers, I'm not making a lot of movement when I'm doing this. You need to find a way to do that, and that it takes a long time. It takes years of working on your technique to do that. But if you start off with good habits, then maybe it doesn't take you as long as it took me, because I didn't start off with good habits. So that's number 2. Scales was number 1. Technique is number 2. Lastly is learning other songs. And so this one, I think there's 2 reasons to do this. Number 1 is, if you learn all your scales and you have good technique, then you can play scales really well and you can play the technique exercises really well. But the reason why everyone's doing this obviously is to actually play songs. So you need to go through and you need to find, really what I would suggest is any song that you're actually inspired by and actually want to learn, then you need to sit down and you need to learn it. I don't think it's ever too early to try to figure out songs by ear. And especially when it comes to the TALKBOX, you're probably going to have to do that kind of a lot, because there's not going to be a whole lot of tutorials of people showing you the exact notes of a vocal melody. So, one that I just, for whatever reason, just recently learned is that song Old Town Road. I taught it to a student. And so the vocal melody is like... And learning stuff like that, that's a pretty simple melody. Try to figure it out by ear. Ask yourself, okay, here's the starting note, and then what's the next note, and then give yourself some time to do it. Like anything else, it's, this is a skill that takes a long time to learn, and you're not going to start off as very good at it, and eventually you're going to be better at it, and it takes a long time. But learning to figure stuff out by ear is pretty crucial. But even if you don't learn to figure stuff out by ear, just learning other people's songs. So that's going to be the other video that I make, actually, that this dude asked me to make. Is I'm going to make a video basically explaining exactly how to play the song "If You Want Me to Stay" on the TalkBox. So yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it as far as just bare essentials of stuff you have to learn in order to play the TalkBox as a keyboard really keyboard skills that you have to learn in order to play the TalkBox. I think that's about all you really need. Again, you're not going to get out of this thing without being a keyboard player. You have to learn how to play the keyboard. There's really no way around it, because all of the notes that you're playing when you're playing the TalkBox, I mean, you're playing a keyboard, right? And so all the same rules apply as a keyboard. The only difference really is you're not going to play chords, and you're not going to use your left hand very often, which makes your life easier. So anyways, hopefully that helps. If anybody out there, feel free to shoot me a message. Instagram's the easy way to find me or get a hold of me. If you also want a video made, or if you have some follow-up questions, put them in the comments. Send me a message on Instagram, whatever. The comments on YouTube, for whatever reason, like they'll get posted and they don't notify me of them. So sometimes it'll be like a month before I see it. So I mean, I try to reply to them, but sometimes I just don't see them. Anyways, hopefully that helped.